Hello friends, welcome to today's yoga session. Today we're going to be focusing on the deeper meaning of asana, the physical postures of yoga, and the deeper meaning of the sun salutation practice. This is what I really love to do. I love to share this deeper understanding of what the yoga science is really about, because as you may have already experienced as you go into yoga classes, most of the time the focus is purely physical. Working with the physical body and helping to strengthen and stretch and build endurance. And all of these things are absolutely wonderful foundations for going into the deeper meaning of what yoga is really about, which is the expansion of the consciousness to experiencing that union, which is what yoga really means, the union between my individual consciousness and the cosmic consciousness, this understanding that we can transcend our limitations and actually experience something that is far greater than our normal level of perception. And one of the ways that we can actually do this is through our asana practice, which is somehow missed, as the tendency is to go through these fast strength building vinyasa classes, which I also really enjoy. And you've seen me teach them here to this group. There's a great benefit from doing this particular physical practice. But today I'd like to share with you the deeper meaning of asana and what it can really do to transform not only your body, but also your energy, your emotions, your mind, and even through the asana practice, the physical postures help you to reach the highest state of consciousness. So let's get right into it. Now, in the beginning of the yoga science, which comes from thousands and thousands of years ago, there were the Vedas, which literally means knowledge, the teachings about life. And this was more of an ascetic path that actually said the body was an obstacle to illumination, to self-realization or enlightenment. Then, throughout the evolution of human consciousness, as time progressed, there became a different understanding of how to reach this higher level of consciousness, and it started to incorporate the use of the body. Now, back about 2,500 years ago, there was a master called Patanjali, and he wrote this famous classical book of yoga called the Yoga Sutras. And I highly encourage you, if you haven't read this book, this is the synthesis of classical yoga science into short statements that guide the practitioner through this path to, again, this highest state of consciousness. What Patanjali said very clearly is that in terms of asana, you really only need to do one. Now, if you look at today's practice, there are an infinite, literally infinite variety of possibilities of way that we can move our body for the physical benefits. But according to Patanjali, about 2,500 years ago, all we needed was one asana, and that is the seated posture. Why? Because in the seated posture is when we go into meditation. And please remember that the whole yoga science is guiding us from the physical to the more subtle, to the energy, the emotions, the mind, and then even to the spirit. So Patanjali stated all we need to do is sit in meditation and allow ourselves to let go of the focus on the body. Now, let me read a few quotes for you that give a bit of an introduction to his understanding. For Patanjali, this great master, the posture is immobile, firm, and comfortable. It is realized when the effort disappears and there is meditation on the infinite. From now on, the yogi will not be disturbed by dualities. Now, how many of us can just sit in one posture and focus on the infinite? It's not an easy thing to do. We live in a very different time, a different climate. The circumstances and the environment around us have changed dramatically since 2,500 years ago. Fortunately, the yoga science has also evolved to address the human consciousness that is evolving. And in this addressing of the differences, there's been a new introduction of the use of the physical body. And it's not just about one posture anymore. But let's go back to what Patanjali said. He says that the asana, the physical posture, means to be seated in a position that is firm yet relaxed. And we can take this understanding into our practice. We move through these different postures, and how can we maintain that state of relaxation even when the body is being challenged, when the body is firm? Well, that relaxation, if the body is being challenged in a physical posture, doesn't necessarily come from a relaxed physical body. It comes from a relaxed state of mind, an internal sense of peace, even when that body is working hard. Now, the last thing I'd like to say that Patanjali mentioned was that Sthira Sukham Asana. This is Sanskrit. You don't have to worry about exactly how to remember that, but Sthira Sukham Asana means that yoga asana is the balance of effort and ease. Well, in a one-seated posture, yes, we can find that ease and that effort that it requires to stay within the seat. But we can also find that in other postures, and we're going to discuss this more. Now, think of asanas not as physical poses, but as a state of being. Think about that. They are not just something for the physical body, they are a state of being. And this is what I really want to encourage you to understand by the end of today's discussion, that these asanas are so much deeper than just bringing a physical fitness to the body. Now, basically, by learning to control the asana, you can develop the ability to stabilize your emotions, control thoughts, and lead towards meditation. What is meditation? Meditation is the ability to stay fully present. At the first level of meditation, it's just being present in this moment. But to go deeper into meditation means to expand the consciousness beyond the limitations of the physical body, the energy, the emotions, and mind. And at the highest level of meditation, we actually become one with the universal consciousness. Now, this, of course, is just a concept. It's just words. But this is how we want to understand that our intention in yoga is to go beyond the physical body, and the asana practice, the physical postures, can actually take us there. So this is a process of integrating and balancing all the koshas. A kosha literally means a layer, or we could call it a body. And in yoga, they talk about the fact that we have 5 bodies. We have the physical body, energy body, emotional body, mental body, and the spiritual body. And the beauty of asana practice, if it's done with a certain understanding, is that it can actually address all 5 of our bodies. We can do something with our physical body that has an impact on the energy, emotions, mind, and even our spiritual path. So, when we learn to control these asanas, we are learning concentration. Concentration is the key to going deeper. And in fact, I had a teacher who said that there is no yoga without concentration of the mind. Now, once we get to a certain level, that concentration actually is surrendered and we dissolve. We dissolve the mind into something greater than the mind. And this happens at the highest level. But in order to get on that path towards the highest level, concentration is the key factor. And the beauty of a vinyasa class is you have to concentrate. The mind has to be totally present to be able to move through these postures that take balance, coordination, strength, and flexibility. So this is a great training for the mind. And just like we train a muscle to get stronger, we have to train our concentration to develop it, to get more and more powerful in our ability to stay focused. Now, whatever we do in our lives, we need this ability to concentrate. So, as I've said many times, our yoga practice is not just something we do on the mat. This is preparation. This yoga practice on the mat is preparation for every aspect of life off of the mat. And by training the mind, we actually get better at our business, our sport, our music, art, hobby, family life, whatever it is that we are engaged in. If we can concentrate fully on the engagement in this present moment, this is going to take us to a place where we are more effective, more productive, creative, and more engaged. And that's the point of yoga, is how do we live fully present? Because that's where the power is. So, our measure of our internal ability to focus and concentrate is a reflection of our internal world. If you can do the postures, that means that you are attaining a certain level of concentration. So we can see in a practice with different yogis doing their physical movements how focused they are. And this is a great way to get to the understanding that how do we get to the higher level of consciousness through our physical practice? Now, in an asana practice, according to what comes later, Patanjali was 2,500 years ago, and he said, sit in one asana and focus on the infinite. As time evolved, another science or another branch of the yoga science came along called Tantra. And Tantra is not just about sex, that's for sure. That's just one tiny part of it. Tantra is actually about embracing the body, the energy, the emotions, and mind as a path to awakening. So instead of being an ascetic path where the body was thought of as an obstacle, we have evolved throughout the centuries to a place where the tantrics understand that everything is a manifestation of this divine consciousness. So everything in our lives is actually a tool, an opportunity for us to grow, to learn more about who we are by coming into contact with the deeper levels of ourselves. And we use the body as a gateway to get into the understanding of the deeper levels of ourselves. So when we move into this practice, it's important to have an intention. Our intention helps to create our experience. The beginning of every yoga class that I have taught, and the teachers that have taught me encouraged me to do this. That's why I also really believe in the efficacy of this practice, is setting an intention. So when you set that intention, you start to create your understanding of why you are doing exactly what you're doing. Without that, you can flow through a practice half-heartedly and your mind can wander very easily. But if you set your intention to be focused, to open your heart, to experiencing the subtle levels of energy, and on with the different possibilities of intentions that you can set for yourself in a practice, please understand that if you don't set the intention, it's very difficult to have the experience that takes you deeper. So always start your yoga practice with an intention. Start your practice by centering yourself, coming inside, and then you manifest from the inside out your experience through your yoga practice. We want to be attentive. We want to pay attention to all that is happening. Now, it's easy to focus on the body. This is the most gross level of our being. It's the slowest vibration, the densest material that we have. And I can see it, I can feel it, I can actually look at it as well. But we want to be attentive to the subtle levels, meaning we turn our attention within. And the whole yoga science is a work in, not a work out. It's this idea of going deeper into ourselves beyond the physical body and coming into contact with those other bodies. So we want to start to feel the subtle energy. And some people say, well, I don't feel energy. Well, that just is a matter of focusing the mind inside and starting to become aware of what's happening internally. It's also a matter of purification. If we have a lot of toxins in our body or difficult emotions and the mind is chaotic, then it's hard to perceive things that are very subtle. If we can begin to purify ourselves, and this happens through the yoga science, we become more and more sensitive and we become more perceptive of this subtle level of ourselves. Now, not only are we becoming aware of this inner vibration, and remember, this isn't just some yoga myth about energy. This is modern science validating what the yogis have been saying for thousands of years. Modern science is finally catching up to what the yogis have understood just by looking within their own bodies. And the Greeks said it as well, know thyself and you shall know the universe. The yogis understood by looking within, you can find the answers, the key, and solve the mystery to what it really means to be alive in a human body in this universe. So when we're paying attention inside, we're looking for that subtle vibration and even the flow of energy. And every posture that we do in yoga, if we hold it for a little bit longer, then we start to create a circuit, a flow of energy. And that's what we're looking for in our deeper understanding of the yoga science of asana practice. As we look at the asanas, we're finding that energetic flow. We are creating that energy flow. And I'm going to talk more about that in a moment. But what are we also becoming aware of as we look within? We're becoming aware of our breath. Our breath is our connection to the energy around us. That's why they call it pranayama, the extension, control of this prana or life force. And breathing is one way to bring that life force energy into our bodies. We also get it from the food we eat, the water we drink, the walking on the earth, and there's sources of energy all around us. And yoga is about plugging into these different sources so that we become a channel and that energy can flow through us and completely empower us and take us into a next level of experience. And most of the time in the modern world, we as a culture tend to be disconnected from this energy around us. You know, we wear plastic shoes, we don't walk on the earth. We drink soda, cola, pop instead of drinking pure high vibration water. We eat foods that are not natural, and we do not breathe deeply. So all of these things that are becoming habits in our modern world are actually cutting us off from the source of energy that's all around us. Now, as we look within for the energy and the breath, we also become aware of our emotions. Everything in this universe is energy, including our emotions and our thoughts. So if we understand this, we can look within and feel the energy of our emotions. We can become aware of the energy of our thoughts and how that energy impacts our state of consciousness. This is very important understanding that it's the energy that's actually creating our experience. Now, this is where we want to go in our yoga asana practice. Deeper understanding of how the energy changes and affects and even manifests our body, emotions, mind, state of consciousness. In order to do this, we have to slow down. Now, in my dynamic classes, I'm doing something that was never the intention of yoga in the beginning, to do a physical fitness practice. Now, I love the physical fitness of a dynamic practice. As I've said, it really works. And in fact, it's one of the best forms of exercise that I've ever experienced as an athlete who's been doing sport for the last 45 years. What I can say is that yoga, vinyasa classes, dynamic practices, excellent for the whole body. But if we only focus on the physical level of the dynamic flowing practice, we don't get into the deeper states. We don't get into the perception of what's happening inside because we're too busy focusing on what to do with the body. So in order to go into the deeper level of an asana practice, the first and foremost step is slowing down. And that means holding a posture, not just for 10 seconds, 30 seconds. It means holding it for a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, up to 30 minutes or longer. Then it becomes a meditation. And in the yin yoga practice that we have here sometimes in the group, that's one approach to slowing down. And I try to bring in the awareness of the energy as we go into these yin yoga practices. But yin yoga is not even the same as the original understanding of how to go into a meditative state on the energy as it used to be taught. So we want to go into this quiet inner silence and stability. And this becomes the meditation while you hold that posture for a long time. Obviously, you can't hold all the postures for 30 minutes. Some are very physically demanding, but even those physically demanding ones, the longer you hold them, the greater the benefit at the energetic level, not just the physical level. And it's really important to understand that the energy body actually is controlling the physical body. It's the energy that manifests the physicality. And if we have a disturbance in the energy that lasts for long enough, it's going to create an illness, disease, or disturbance at the physical level. Remember, the perfection of asana, the physical practice, doesn't actually mean the perfection of your spiritual path on the internal level. You can have imperfect alignment, and there's a big emphasis on alignment in today's yoga world, which is great because it does help the physical body to receive the benefits. But the original understanding of Hatha Yoga, Ha being sun, Ta being moon. It's the balance of these two energies within us, which means the balance of the two polarities of energy, the plus and the minus. And every energy that exists in the universe has this polarity of the plus and minus charge. In yoga, it's called Ha and Ta. In Chinese medicine and Taoism, it's called yin and yang, or even masculine and feminine. So with this understanding of how to go into the balance of the energy, that's how we create balance at the physical level. And that's the deeper understanding of what to do with your asana practice. And the only way to really get into the deepest level is to slow down. So when I am teaching the dynamic practice, I try to bring that awareness to the internal state as much as possible. It's not always possible because you're flowing through a physical practice that's quite dynamic, but you can still be aware of your breath, your internal energy, your emotions, and your mind as you flow through that practice. And this is what I'm talking about in terms of expanding your consciousness, expanding your consciousness to perceive more of yourself, of who you truly are beyond just the physical body. So basically all of the asana practices, if they're done correctly, should lead the yogi, the practitioner, to create a positive change in your life, not just in your physical body, but in your life. Because when you create positive changes in your life, you've touched your karmic body. Now, I only have so long to talk about these topics today, but karma is the law of action and reaction. And we store this energy. Karma is an energy, and we can actually work with that energy to let go of the karma that holds us back from stepping into a higher level of existence and experience of our lives. And we do that through the yoga science. And the good news is that we can do that even when we do physical postures. If we hold these postures long enough, it goes deeper and deeper into the subtle bodies. And by holding postures longer, we can actually have an impact on our karma. That's how powerful the science is. And the karma is what's helping our life to unfold in a specific direction. So if you get to know the holistic understanding of this science, you can impact your reality. You can impact your destiny and your awakening process with a lot of control, actually, by doing these things consciously. Now, the Tantra Hatha Yoga practice is what we really do here. And please understand that Tantra is an umbrella, we could say categorization or branch of yoga, and it has to do with working with the body and the energy. So when we do the physical practice of Hatha Yoga, it's not something separate from Tantra. Every time you do Hatha Yoga with your body and with the energy, you are doing a form of Tantra Yoga. Hatha Yoga comes under the umbrella heading of Tantra Yoga. And this is very important to understand. So when you hold your asana for a long time, let's look at the physical understanding. It's affecting every system in your body: circulatory system, lymphatic system, and endocrine system. You're flexing your muscles, you're bending your arms and legs. And what happens is you change the signals that are coming from the nervous system into your brain. When you hold a pose for a long time, it can actually change your consciousness. How does that happen? Well, please understand, we have an endocrine system with different glands, and these glands and the endocrine system are responsible for the creation and distribution of hormones. And the hormones control every system in the body. So by holding a pose for a longer time, you affect the energy. You affect the energy centers known as chakras, and those chakras or energy centers are directly related to the endocrine system. If you just hold for a few seconds, you don't get a very deep impact at this system, this endocrine system. So that's why slowing down is another important aspect of going deeper into affecting the endocrine system and the chakras. And the chakras hold our karmic energy. When we purify the chakras, you start to purify your karma as well. So the true purpose on longer holding of these postures is literally to change your psycho-energetic state. So it's not just energy, it's also mind and consciousness. And this is the direct impact. Tantra is using the body and the energies to evolve spiritually. That's the understanding of Tantra. Let's use what we have, the tools that are accessible to us, in a very practical way to evolve our consciousness to reach the highest state of consciousness. It's considered that the body is the temple of spirituality, and asanas are one of the tools in the yoga science to generate these higher states of consciousness. Basically, the highest purpose of your body is to use your body to awaken to the truth of who you are beyond the body. Now, I could go deeper into this. We only have an hour today, but who we are beyond the physical body is consciousness. And everything that we experience, we are experiencing within our conscious awareness. So it's not that I am in the body is in me. The body is within my conscious awareness. And my conscious awareness, my state of consciousness, actually manifests the physical body. So it's a reciprocal practice. As you work with the physical body, you change your consciousness. As your consciousness changes and evolves, you start to have a greater impact on your physical body. It's really exciting because this science empowers you to become the master of your destiny, to gain control over your process of awakening. But not only that, the health of your physical body, energy, emotions, and mind are all under our direct control through the yoga science. So we have the ability to become the masters of ourselves. And that's what the yoga science is guiding us to, mastery. And we can all get there. It's not just for the yogis who lived in the Himalayas or who lived in the mountains and jungles and caves and focused on meditation for 23 hours a day. We all in this modern world can utilize this science to bring balance to our lives and have a greater experience within our unfolding of this life. Now, if you want to take charge of your destiny, the first step is to take charge of your own body and mind. It's very simple, right? This is something that intellectually we understand, but very often we have excuses, we have addictions, we have responsibilities that prevent us from spending time on bringing ourselves and our lives into balance. But if we have any complaint about something happening in our lives, it is our responsibility to bring ourselves into balance, to address the challenges that we are facing, to address our unfolding of our karma or whatever it is that's happening in your life. There is a way to bring yourself to a greater place of balance, to be able to have more strength, clarity, a sense of empowerment to face these difficulties that come into everyone's lives. Now, let me read you a quote from Sadhguru. And Sadhguru is a master teacher who's living now, and you can find a lot of his teachings on YouTube. Sadhguru is one of the few modern masters that's actually teaching asana practice as part of the spiritual path of awakening. And I think that this quote is worth reading. Hatha Yoga is not exercise. Understanding the mechanics of the body, creating a certain atmosphere, and then using body postures to drive your energy in specific directions is what Hatha Yoga or Yoga Asanas are about. Hatha Yoga is a way of working with the body, a way of disciplining, purifying, and preparing the body for higher levels of energy and possibilities. Hatha Yoga is the science of using the body to hasten your evolutionary process. If you consciously get your body into different postures, you can elevate your consciousness. The body can become a means for your spiritual growth. This is what Yoga Asana is really about. So now that you have this understanding, take that understanding into your next practice and go deeper. Go beyond just this physical fitness practice that's so prevalent in the modern world and evolve yourself consciously through your asana practice. It's all there for us. The whole system of yoga is about experientially exploring the nature of your body and mind. When you get up in the morning and do your asanas, it's not about stretching. You can stretch to do it, but fundamentally, it is an exploration of your body and your mind. Now, from these quotes from Sadhguru, one thing that you can understand directly is that the original intention of yoga is not exercise. You know, there is a great saint out there from India called Swami Shivananda, and he was a physical doctor before he became an enlightened master. And he had a great understanding, therefore, of the biology of the human being. And what he said was you should do your exercise, your jogging, your biking, your swimming, whatever it is that you do to exercise the physical body. And separately, you should do yoga asanas. Because if we're using the asana only for physical strength and flexibility, we're actually missing the real point of what yoga asana can give to us. So yeah, do a few practices a week where you get the strength from your yoga asanas, but also do a few practices a week where you slow down and you go into a meditative state by focusing on the energy, the emotions, and the mind, and hold the postures for longer. And there's an amazing book out there from what's called the Bihar School of Yoga, and I mentioned in another lecture, it's called Asana Pranayama Bandha Mudra. Asana Pranayama Bandha Mudra is the title of a book that tells you which asanas create which energy circuits and activate the different energy centers or chakras. I highly recommend, if you are interested in evolving your consciousness through the science of yoga, get your hands on this book from the Bihar School of Yoga, written by Swami Satyananda, and it will guide you into this deeper understanding that I'm introducing you to now. In addition to all of this, you need to understand that another quote I want to read, your spinal column is the basis of everything that you experience right now. If you want to transcend the limitations of who you are right now, this is the most important part of your body. Sadhguru again. Why does he say this? Because within the spinal column is the nervous system. It's the fight or flight of the sympathetic nervous system. It's the rest and relaxation of the parasympathetic nervous system. It's the spinal column that has the spinal fluid that's connected to the operation and function of the brain. Not only that, within this subtle body, the energy body, we have the biggest channels of energy, the three biggest channels. Ida Nadi, which is represented or connected to the parasympathetic rest and relaxation nervous system, and Pingala Nadi, which is connected to the sympathetic or fight or flight. And when we balance these, we get the balance that allows us to go into the central channel in the spine, Sushumna Nadi. Don't worry about the Sanskrit if it's new to you. But this central channel is the biggest channel, and this is where the chakras or energy centers are located. Now, the understanding of the chakras is the understanding of all of human experience, because each of these 7 primary energy centers helps us to connect to the energy around us in the universe, but it's also different levels of consciousness. It has to do with our body, our energy, our emotions, our mind, and our state of consciousness. That's why working with the chakras in the spinal column is the apex approach to yoga. And we have to understand how important the spine is. They even say you are as young as your spine is flexible. So this is why we spend the time in yoga practice, in asanas, getting the spine to bend forward, to bend back, side to side, laterally moving the spine, even twisting the spine. And by doing this, we're bringing health not only to the physical spine, but also to the energy, the chakras, the emotions, the mind, and the state of consciousness. So, we all know about the physical effects. I don't even want to go into that because it's so basic and clear, and you can ask anybody. But what you do need to know is that when you're doing these different postures, you're creating the energy circuits, as I mentioned, and the body is creating what's called sacred geometry. If you put your body in the lotus pose for meditation, it's forming 1/4 of a pyramid, and the energy in a pyramid goes right up to the top and into the third eye, which is very different than if you do a shoulder stand, and the energy flows down through the body into the throat chakra. Or you could do a headstand where the energy flows down through the body into the crown chakra. And the original asanas were formulated in such a way that they would benefit the energy centers, the chakras, because this is how we evolve our being consciously, by working with the energy and these energy centers or chakras. So you can see what I'm trying to get at. There is a much deeper understanding available to us of why we do the things we do. And when we create this energy, it starts to have an impact. We are psychosomatic beings. If I slump my body long enough, I'm going to start to create my emotional state. It'll make me feel heavy, maybe even depressed. But if I sit up tall and proud, it starts to bring in or create a certain emotional state. So by putting the body into specific postures, we're creating an energy flow, an emotional and mental state that impacts our level of consciousness. Pretty cool, huh? Now, I think that's all I want to talk about for this right now, because I still also want to introduce the deeper meaning of sun salutation practice. Now, before I finish with the asanas, what I want to say is when you do a traditional Tantra Hatha Yoga asana practice, that's a mouthful, Tantra Hatha Yoga asana practice, you set the intention, as I mentioned, okay, I'm doing this asana because I know that I want to create or impact my 5 bodies in some way. So I'm going to do a specific asana now. So I set my intention to do that asana, and I have the holding of that posture, and I go into the meditative state. Eyes are always closed when you go into deeper practices of yoga. Every time the eyes are open, your mind is stimulated by the visual field, and it activates and sets this mental monkey going even faster. So we close the eyes to look within, feel that energy, observe our emotions and our thoughts. Then we hold that pose for anywhere from 30 seconds to 30 minutes. And then when you're done, you come out of the pose, you keep the eyes closed, you can either sit or lay down, and we have an awareness phase, meaning we just observe and become aware of the impact of that longer hold physical posture on the body, energy, emotions, mind, and state of consciousness. So we have the intention before, we have the meditative state during, and we have the awareness phase after, where we sit in stillness and we observe. And when I mean observe, I don't mean look at what's happening and start to name it, label it, or give it a story. We want to avoid all that. We want to feel more and think less. We want to be present without giving it the names or the labels, because those are limitations anyway. They are not the actual experience. The actual experience comes from feeling what's happening and observing. And through the practice of yoga, we become more connected to what we call the witness consciousness, where we are the observer of the experience at the same time, simultaneously being the one who is having the experience. So we are much greater than that which we have been taught that we are. And yoga is the science of teaching us who we really are. Now, all through history, we've had different numbers of asanas. In the beginning, there was one asana, as I mentioned, and throughout the centuries, there were different texts that came along. In the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, the Shiva Samhita, the Garanda Samhita, these are three of the main texts of Hatha Yoga, and they have different numbers of asanas or physical postures that are considered the primary postures because of how potent they are for impacting all of our bodies. So please look into the text, look into the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. There's another great version of this book from the Bihar School of Yoga, and you can use this book along with the other book that I mentioned before to help get a greater understanding of what Hatha Yoga is really about. Okay, that's all I want to talk about for this. Now let's go into the sun salutations. The sun salutations are another practice from yoga that has a much deeper meaning than what many of the teachers or schools or practitioners are actually experiencing in our modern world. So, sun salutations known as Surya Namaskar. Basically, the sun is the greatest source of energy within our solar system. So what is all of this Hatha Yoga science about? Connecting to the energy, bringing balance to our internal energy. Why do we want to balance our internal energy? Because it manifests physical health, but not only that, when we balance our internal energy, we balance our emotions and our mind. And that's the understanding of Hatha Yoga. Rather than just sitting still and trying to achieve a state of being able to focus on the infinite, which is very difficult, we work with the body, and that helps to balance the energy. By working with the energy, that helps to balance the body, the emotions, and the mind. Because the emotions and the mind are forms of energy within ourselves. And if we work with the energy directly and bring that to balance, then the mind can slow down. Then we can experience that state of internal peace that yoga is guiding us towards. Whatever form or whatever branch of yoga that appeals to you, the ultimate goal is to find that internal state of peace and even stillness that transcends the thinking mind. So when we do the sun salutations, most of the time these days it's used as a nice warm-up for the rest of your practice. Yes, we know that it stretches the muscles, the tendons, the ligaments, and even massages the internal organs and gets the spine bending forward and back, which helps to send the spinal fluid through that spine into the brain, which brings health to the mind. So there's a lot going on in this sun salutation practice, but what I want to bring the awareness to today is how much more is available to us through this practice if we understand the deeper meaning. Now, when we do this sun salutation practice, we are doing physical movements, but we're also doing breathing. And when we go into a yoga practice with the understanding that the whole system is really designed to trap the mind or guide the mind into the present moment fully, then we start to engage different rays of attention. If I'm focusing on movement and I'm focusing on breath, that's already 2 rays of attention. So if I have to do these 2 things simultaneously, it becomes difficult for my mind to run away and go somewhere else. And we know that most of the time, or very often throughout the day, we are moving through our lives and we're not even present. We are focusing on what's going to happen next, or we're regretting or thinking about what happened before. And therefore, we're missing our life. We're missing the present moment. And the present moment is the only place where we can step into our full power. So this is important to understand. Through the yoga science, we start to trap the mind. Trap might be a negative connotation, but you know what I mean. Guide the mind into the present. In sport, we call it being in the zone, being so focused that the mind doesn't have thoughts. It only has the awareness of our experience in this moment. And this is the beauty of the yoga science, because it's so efficient, so effective at bringing the mind into the present moment. When we do sun salutations, you can even have a visualization. Excuse me. The deeper meaning of sun salutation is not just movement with breath, but it's also a visualization, the inner eye. And we visualize the light of the chakra, of the energy center. Each of the postures that we do in sun salutations has an effect on the energy body, which has an effect on a specific chakra or energy center. And each of the chakras or energy centers has a specific color, because even color has a vibration, a resonance, right? Color's an energy too. Everything's an energy. So if we can visualize this chakra color as we're in that posture, we're already using another ray of attention. This is very powerful. And even deeper is to visualize a deity that's related. And a deity has all these details, and that's one of the highest levels of visualization. And please understand, visualization is one of the highest levels of yoga technique, because the more that you can visualize something in detail, your mind is creating that which you are visualizing with consistency and with detail. So you can see this sun salutation practice is actually a very profound practice. Then we add the next step, chanting a mantra. A mantra is a vibrational sound that has a specific frequency or energy. And the ancient language of Sanskrit, which is called Devanagari, or the language of the gods, purportedly was downloaded by the seers, sages, mystics, and saints of thousands of years ago. They received this language from the divine consciousness as a way to manifest and impact physical reality. So using the mantras during the sun salutation practice connects us to the different characteristics of the energy of the sun. Now, how many rays of attention am I using? I'm using physical movement. I'm focusing on my breath. I'm visualizing a color and bringing my awareness to the specific chakra or energy center that's being impacted with that particular posture. And I'm chanting a mantra. Now, you tell me, where's your mind else going to go? Where else can it go? If you're doing all of these things simultaneously, you are focused. You are present in such a way that it's not possible for the mind to escape. And that's how we train the mind. And day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, when we train the mind like we train a muscle, it gets stronger and stronger. And instead of being diffused like a 40-watt light bulb that's barely lighting the room because it's spread in all directions, we harness the power of the mind and bring it into a single point, and that becomes a laser-like focus that harnesses the true power of the mind. But you've tried to maybe stay focused in meditation or in yoga practice or even in work, and after a few moments, your mind is already off somewhere else. Okay, bring the mind back. You got to focus, so you bring it back. After a few more seconds, the mind goes somewhere else. And we do this throughout the day. So yogis say, let's train the mind. It's like training an animal. The animal wants to run away constantly. So the first thing you do is you tie it up to something that keeps it from running away. And after realizing, after days, weeks, months, that it can't run away, it starts to slow down and let go of the idea that it needs to escape, and it stays here. And that's what we're doing with the mind. We're training what's called the monkey mind. And we want to train that monkey mind to sit still and be quiet. Then we can transcend the mind and go beyond the mind. And what's beyond the mind is bliss, peace, ecstasy, and even that state of yoga, union, connection to the universe. Now, these are just words, and they don't really express the full experience. But we can all have this experience if we do our yoga practice and we learn to train the mind through these different parts of the science and get into a state where the mind actually slows down and becomes quiet. By working with the energy, balancing the energy, we can quiet the mind. And what's beyond the mind is the intuition and guidance from the heart, and the understanding and the connection, the perception and experience of what's truly this is all about, which is unconditional love. So the mind is either the greatest tool or your worst enemy. It's up to you to decide what you want it to be in your life. If you do nothing about training the mind, we all know how damaging and how difficult the mind can be when it's driving us crazy, literally, with thoughts that we don't want to have. Well, how do we get out of those thoughts? We train the mind through yoga. And now, I know that yoga is not the only training. There are other ways to train the mind as well. But yoga incorporates every level of our being. That's what I love about this science. Physical, energetic, emotional, mental, and spiritual levels are all addressed within our yoga practice. And within the sun salutation practice, we actually get to address all the levels of our being again. So, now, when we do this, it's the idea of working with coming back to the mantras, because this is what we're going to do today. After my little talk here today, we are going to go through a sun salutation practice from the traditional form. Now, over the centuries, there have been many varieties of sun salutation practice. And in the modern world, a lot of the sun salutation practice comes from what's called Ashtanga Vinyasa, which is a specific science, or I could say sequence, of physical postures. And it starts with a type of yoga sun salutations that are not related to the original understanding or teachings of sun salutations. They are a great warm-up. They get the energy moving, but they don't have the deeper level of focusing on the mantras and the visualization and the breath all connected together. They are wonderful physical practice, but the original intention of sun salutations is much deeper than most of the modern variations in sun salutations. And where did these sun salutations come from? They actually came from the Vedas, the original teachings that said, what is the thing to worship as the source of life in this solar system? It's the sun. So they did something in the morning that connected them to the energy of the sun, that balanced and empowered them to become superhuman. And we all have the capacity to be superhuman. It's just a matter of what are your priorities. So when we do the mantras, and we're going to do this today, I'm going to give you the mantra, then we'll chant it together as we flow through this sun salutation practice. Every mantra starts with Om. And Om is considered the primordial sound. In India, they even call it the voice of God. It's the sound that created everything, that started this whole universe, this whole physical reality. And Om is always used at the start of a mantra because it helps to purify the space. It not only helps to purify the space around us, but our internal space is brought into balance with this mantra. So each of the mantras that we do within our sun salutation practice has three parts. The first part is Om. The second part is a different name or a different characteristic of the energy of the sun, and that changes for each of the 12 postures. And then it always finishes with Namaha, which is like an offering, or let's call it an offering. So there's three parts, Om, and let's look at the first mantra, Mitraya Namaha. So we say Om Mitraya Namaha, and that creates a vibration, energy, resonance that impacts our physical cells, our energy channels, our chakras, our emotions, our mind, and our state of consciousness. And we have one mantra for each of the 12 postures that we do. And we do each of these 12 postures in a flowing sequence. And at the end of 12 postures, that's one round. And we do each of this rounds 12 times. Now, why 12? Because 12 is related to the movements of the earth around the sun. Now, the 12 mantras are considered the 12 Vedic names of the sun, and they are connected to the 12 signs of the zodiac. Not only that, the 12 signs of the zodiac, the 12 mantras, are connected to what we call the heart chakra. The heart chakra, and all of the chakras, has a specific number of what we could call petals, because an energy center is also referred to as a lotus, and each lotus is a flower, has a specific number of petals, and that has to do with how many other energy channels from all over the body are connecting in this one center. And in the center of the heart, the energy center or chakra here, there are 12 petals. So the symbolism runs deep. seeing that everything is connected or interconnected through the tantric science. When we go with the 12 postures, it's related to the 12 Vedic names of the sun, related to the 12 signs of the zodiac, related to the 12 petals of the heart chakra, the energy center in the middle of the chest. And as we do this, we are literally trapping our minds here, stabilizing our mind, let's say. So let's look at the mantras quickly, and then we're going to have a nice practice together. First one is Om Mitraya Namaha. And each of these talks about our connection to the different aspects of the energy of the sun. So Om Mitraya Namaha is to the friend. Next mantra, Om Ravaye Namaha, to the shining. Third mantra, Om Suryaya Namaha, to the sun. Fourth mantra, Om Banave Namaha, to the glittering. Fifth, Om Kagaya Namaha, to the walking in the sky. Sixth mantra, Om Pushne Namaha, to the nourishing. And then we have the seventh mantra, which is the most difficult to pronounce. So I want you to pronounce this with me in two different parts. Hiranya Garbhaya. Then we'll say it together. Om Hiranya Garbhaya Namaha. Om Hiranya Garbhaya Namaha. Now, what I'm going to do in the practice is I'll say the middle word, the middle part of the mantra, because that's the only one that changes. And then we repeat the whole mantra together. And you'll get used to this in the first round. It's quite simple. So that means to the golden embryo. Then the eighth mantra, Om Marichaye Namaha, to the radiant. Om Adityaya Namaha, to the primary. Om Savitre Namaha, to the illuminating one. Om Arkaya Namaha, to the bright. And Om Bhaskaraya Namaha, to the enlightener. So this is our human connection to the power of the sun. And don't worry, if you didn't remember all those words right now, don't worry about it. You can go online and look up mantras for traditional sun salutation practice. And you can learn how to do this very simply. And for me, I've been teaching yoga for quite a few years now. When I teach this particular practice with the mantras, we're not going to go into the visualization with the chakras yet. We go to that level later. First, we have to go step by step to advance and progress in this practice. Today, when we do it with the mantras, what we're going to have is an opportunity to see how powerful it is to move and say the mantra in terms of how powerful it is to keep the mind focused. And all the students that I have taught this to over the years, or at least the majority, have said that they love this practice because it's one of the first times they actually felt that their mind was really present for an extended period of time. Because of the movement and the chanting of the mantra, listening to me give the cue and then chanting it back to me, this is what really keeps the mind focused. And it takes about 12 to 15 minutes to go through the whole practice. And if you can keep your mind focused for longer and longer periods of time, this is strengthening the muscle of concentration of your mind. And that's the whole goal right now with our yoga practice. So, this whole science of sun salutations is a complete sadhana, which means spiritual practice. You're working with asana, pranayama or breathing, chakra awareness, the energy centers, mantra awareness, which has an impact on your state of consciousness and your psyche. And it's a meditation. It's a moving meditation focusing on all of these things simultaneously, keeping the mind present. Because meditation just means being fully present. And when you are fully present for longer and longer, that presence of mind is a gateway to the infinite beyond the mind. And that's the step in the direction to the highest level of yoga. So it stretches, massages, tones, stimulates the muscles, the vital organs, the physical parts of the body. It alternatively flexes the spine, and it has a depth and completion of spiritual practice. This is a wonderful science of yoga sun salutations, and it takes 12 to 15 minutes. Do this every morning. It builds heat in the body, connects you to the purification aspect of the sun, because when we bring that power of the sun into our bloodstream, we're purifying the blood. And this purification works at all the levels: physical, energetic, emotional, and mental. So I want to share this practice with you now, and we'll finish with that and maybe a little bit of breathing afterwards, and we have a complete practice today. If you don't have time for a long yoga practice, do your sun salutations in the morning with the mantras. And if you can come back to this practice that we're just about to start together and do it with me if you want, until you memorize the mantras for yourself, and you can do it on your own. Okay. Now, please remember that you have an opportunity to send me questions, or I do Q&As occasionally here. Please, if you have a question, let me know. I feel it's so important to get these teachings out so that everybody has an opportunity to benefit from them. And as you've heard from this whole lecture, there's so much more available to us through the science than just physical fitness. And I hope you understand now that this can literally transform every aspect of your being, which means it can transform your life. And that's our responsibility, is to evolve ourselves to our highest potential. That's why we're here. And if we miss this opportunity to use yoga for evolution, we've really lost a great opportunity to transform ourselves into the fullest potential, our innate capacity to awaken to who we are beyond just the physical body.